My name's Stephen Goakes and I'm the Managing Director of Natgen Group. I'm here today to talk to you about our Natgen Development Trust PR25, which is the latest in a series of large-scale self-storage developments within southeast Queensland, and the third one of which the first two are basically now complete. Self-storage is a growing and maturing industry nationwide, having mirrored the experience in the United States over quite a long period of time. And really it's an interesting time in this industry because there's been a large amount of offshore capital come into the market, and really the big funds from the US have come in and brought literally hundreds of millions of dollars each year for the last few to buy various portfolios of self-storage assets. This has made it clear that the self-storage asset class is maturing from something slightly unusual to a centre important asset class which is going to be traded for a long time into the future. Self-storage is also maturing as a product within the Australian market due to the fact of how people are living in the 21st century, basically. You're probably aware that households have been reducing in size over the last 50 years and continue to do so. There's now well less than 2 persons per household in the average Australian household, and that has significant impacts on how people live and in what type of accommodation they live in. So the standard house now is on a 325 square metre block, which means that a lot of those things that people had when they had literally 3 times as much space in a house block, they don't have. So the garden shed is not something that most houses can fit in anymore. Numerous garages other than 2, very uncommon. So anything that you've got that you need to drag along behind a car, be it your tradie tools in a trailer, be it a jet ski, be it a box trailer to work on your garden or what have you, you've literally got nowhere to put them. So that is one of the reasons why self-storage demand is growing, simply because of lifestyle. The other aspect of lifestyle that's also increased self-storage penetration is the fact that people are moving more often. Household moving, packing up and moving from one place to another, is one of the major catalytic events to getting into self-storage. So we look for areas that have growth happening, so there's more people moving in and moving around. Even areas with higher rental rates is really important because renters tend to move more regularly than home buyers, so that's another thing we look for. And also places where population is denser. So the Gold Coast, for example, is a good indication of where density is one of the driving factors of self-storage. So 2 of our 3 self-storage projects, the 2 we've already completed, are actually in the Gold Coast local government area. The third one, PR25, which we're talking about today, is actually in the major growth corridor to the southwest of Brisbane, down through the areas of Logan City, basically between Logan City and Ipswich, that runs down basically at a 45-degree angle to the southwest of Brisbane CBD. This is an area where there's relatively abundant land, relatively good infrastructure, and the state and federal governments are putting a very substantial amount of infrastructure into ensuring that these areas are livable. And over the last 2, 3, 4 years that we've been watching this particular area, we've seen more and more housing estates literally blossom before our eyes. Hundreds of roofs appear where they weren't before. It's not enough to alleviate the housing crisis, but it's certainly part of the solution to the housing crisis is densifying houses within these well-served areas. So PR25 is located at Park Ridge, hence PR, and Park Ridge is along the Mount Lindesay Highway from Browns Plains towards Jimboomba in that southwestern corridor. The Mount Lindesay Highway is the main thoroughfare through there, so it's a very important road to have access to. I didn't mention before, but having massive exposure to a major road is a really, really important part of what we do. So all of our self-storage facilities are located on very major roads. And that's really about making sure that there's visual awareness of where you are. Because one thing about self-storage is that it's a needs-based service. People don't go into self-storage because they want to feel good about themselves. It's because they've got a problem. They've got stuff that they need to put somewhere. And it's interesting because there's no substitute good or service to storage. If you've got stuff and you need to put it somewhere, you literally need to put it into self-storage or bigger storage if you've got more stuff, I guess. So that's the general basis of why we chose that location. It's about population growth, mobility of the population, conspicuity of the site from the road, and also, like every Natgen development, it's about buildability as well. That's always a massive issue. We come to PR25 on the back of the two previous developments, which were Natgen Development Trust UC22 and ML23. The UC22 facility has just literally opened this week and has been independently revalued by valuers for a refinance that takes place at the time where we move from construction funding to operating funding. And I'm pleased to advise that our unit price, which was initially $1 per unit, has just been revalued to $1.70 per unit. This is in contrast to, in the information memorandum, at this point of the completion of the building was expected to be about $1.16 per unit. On the front of the UC22 information memorandum, we had a number which was about 42 or $1.42, or 42% uplift. That was at the end of the let-up period, which is 18 months to 2 years further on from now. Our projection of that number now is that should be $2.10, or 110% increase in unit price, unit value from when we started. So as you can see, the value is outperforming the information memorandum forecasts pretty greatly. There's a similar theme with ML23, where we were expecting the as at completion valuation to be about 20% above where it is. We've just had that come in at 30%. And then for the as at full valuation was 37%. We're looking at that being somewhere between 55 and 60% by the end of it. So as you can see, we've performed really well, and that's been caused by a number of factors. One of them has been, again, the ability to maintain costs and to go through our traditional value engineering process and design process to increase amenity and reduce construction costs. And also the market has been good by maintaining capitalisation rates due to the popularity of self-storage as an asset class, basically by American hedge funds, which is continuing. So basically we're looking at doing the same thing in Park Ridge as we've done with those other two. The numbers are about to be produced, so I'm not going to foreshadow the numbers at this point in terms of our expected increase in unit price. But the way it works is it takes a period of construction, then we go through a let-up phase, which is that couple of years to get all the units filled, and there's hundreds of them, so they do take some time. And then from there on in, we run it for a 5-year period and provide our unit holders with return on that basis. One of the reasons for doing it this way was to trap the development profit within the unit price. That means that you've got an appreciating asset that you don't have to pay any tax on at that point because there's been no realisation of the asset. We can then provide our income return based on that increased asset value, and then at the end of that 5-year period we can sell out and people can realise their value. Another important aspect of this is that after that period of time, the gain that's achieved out of the asset will be a capital gain, and none of it is an income gain in terms of a development profit, which is again crucial to tax effectiveness. So a development like PR25 happens quite similar to most Natgen development trusts, be they the short-term style ones or the longer-term hybrid ones like this one. So first of all, we identify a site that we want to go for and we option it up. We then collect the equity for the process and also choose our debt funder. We're very particular about our debt funders, and we look for particular attributes such as excellent flexibility in terms. That's the most important thing with these things. Then we go through the design process, which is also really important with buildings like this. There's a few different ways you can build them, and As I said, we've now done 2 of these large buildings, and we've come upon the fact that if we provide a solid concrete core with a metal skin, that's both the most cost-efficient building methodology and also provides the greatest strength, and crucially is the best fire protection. So we believe our self-storage developments have the state-of-the-art fire protection within the industry because we've got solid concrete floors and structure, and they're fully sprinkled. So the size of the fire compartments is particularly small compared to some others. So really we then add to that the design concepts that we've come up with over time. We've taken a lot of advice from a lot of people within the self-storage industry, both nationally and abroad, and we design them to be the most easy use for the people involved. So we look particularly for good safety and ease of use for people, because people putting their goods in and out of storage, they want to feel safe, they want to be well serviced, and they want to be able to make the process as easy as possible. That includes things like ensuring that we've got move-in trucks and trailers for people and move out, and also that we can provide a high level of online service for people who want that, but also service by someone with a smiling face if you walk through the front door of the facility. Some operators are actually taking the people out of the equation, but we feel that's a retrograde step, and we're keen to keep people in the equation. We think they more than pay for themselves in terms of client retention and goodwill within our community. So having learnt all those lessons in self-storage, both from the other ones that we've done, but also from me having owned self-storage myself in a family context since 1997, we have decided to create our own self-storage brand, which is called General Self-Storage. We use all the state-of-the-art processes for things such as payments, the management systems, the state-of-the-art security systems, even down to management reporting and the use of AI within the security systems and the like. One thing, for example, that I've noticed within our latest systems is facial recognition. Everyone who comes into our facility, creepily enough, gets their face print taken, and we can actually go through and look at every single person that's been in and out and track their movements. Yeah, so all those high levels of sophistication, and no doubt AI will come into this as well in terms of tracking people's movements, which is a security issue. We will be taking advantage of over time to ensure that we provide the highest level of ease of use and the least friction within the transactions. When I mention AI, being a man of a certain age, I have to admit that I understand there's some pushback from people and some suspicion about that, and that's particularly why our facilities will be actually manned by people. So manager will be on site all the time to ensure that people have a human being to talk to about any aspect of what they're doing. I think AI in this context is more going to be used in terms of management reporting and the ability to make the transactions basically able to be reviewed in real time, and to provide us with better insights of who's using the facilities, how they're using them, and how to best serve them and provide them with the best experience. I do sometimes get asked what the important factors are for us in selecting a builder for any of our developments, but particularly a large and quite expensive building like a self-storage. And I think it's fair to say that whilst we look at the normal due diligence items such as the balance sheet of the builder and what they've previously built and all that sort of stuff, effectively trust and integrity of the builder is by far the most important thing. With PR25, we'll certainly be using builders that we've used previously and we've found to be trustworthy and quality in what they produce. The difference that it makes having a good trustworthy builder compared to one with whom you end up in a somewhat combative relationship is literally chalk and cheese, and it really impacts the value of the development as well by ensuring that everything that we need done is done with goodwill and cooperation.